So good afternoon, almost good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. First, I want to thank Thanks for Nothing, as well as the Galerie Charpentier, for inviting us to be a part of this really important conversation on art and mental health. I currently serve as senior curator at the Fondation Cartier pour l'art contemporain, and it's a real pleasure to be here today with Charwei. Charwei and I go back a very long time, to almost 20 years, to 2005, when she was part of an exhibition we organized at the Fondation Cartier called Jean Rêve, which was dedicated to showcasing a new generation of young artists. And it's been incredibly inspiring to see how her practice has evolved over the years. So when we think about art and mental health, we often encounter the old idea that art comes from a place of suffering. There's the myth of the tortured artist. In the 1930s, the surrealist writer Georges Bataille, reflecting on Van Gogh and his severed ear, said that art is born of a wound that does not heal. But today, Charwei and I would like to explore another possibility. How can art be an act of care for oneself, for others, and for the world? How might creativity nurture resilience, joy, and a sense of connection? Charwei's work opens a space where these questions can be felt and explored. She does this through a practice that weaves together artistic creation and spiritual inquiry, and that is shaped by a long engagement with Buddhist philosophy. Although rooted in spiritual reflection, her work is never disconnected from the world's realities. It invites us to look closely at personal stories of specific individuals and communities, and through them to glimpse something universal about being human. In recent years, she has increasingly engaged with marginalized communities and indigenous groups, shedding light on the injustices they face. Her approach is often collaborative. Through workshops and participatory projects, she brings people together to share their experiences and to actively shape the work. Charwei, I'd like to begin by turning to the spiritual foundation of your work. From the beginning of your career, you've been reflecting on Buddhist texts, especially the Heart Sutra, which is one of the most important teachings in Mahayana Buddhism. The Heart Sutra reminds us that everyone is interconnected and constantly changing, and that recognizing this can help us live with less fear and greater compassion. In the exhibition Jean Rêve that we worked on together, you inscribed this text onto ephemeral materials like tofu, mushrooms, and flowers. The Heart Sutra has remained a constant thread in your work, a source you've returned to again and again over the years. Could you tell us what drew you, what attracted you so early on to the Heart Sutra?
Hi everyone, I'm really happy to be here, and thank you Marie and Gail for having me, and it's very special to, let me change to the next slide. Yes, I'm very happy to be here with Leanne, who I've known for 20 years now. She was the curator of the first exhibition where I ever exhibited my work. Okay, so with the Heart Sutra, it's a text that I came to memorize since I was little, growing up in Taiwan. It's something where you could see everywhere, like in the shop windows or installed as a calligraphy on restaurant walls, and even is quoted in popular songs. So it's kind of respected as a text that reveals profound wisdom.
Charwei, when you're inscribing the text on these different ephemeral materials, what kind of gesture is it for you? Is it a meditative gesture? Is it a ritual or something else?
So I think it started when I was young. I just recited when I was scared. As like if I have a nightmare or if I like I was really scared of ghost stories when I was young, so I would recite the mantra as like a protection for my mind. And then later, as I became more familiar with the text through my practice, it became more as a meditation on the mind. For example, like what is the mind and what is fear, or like what is pain and who's experiencing it. So as we break down what is mind, like when we deconstruct it, like in the text, we slowly start to understand that that it's a composite of many things, of like our perceptions, our feelings, our consciousness, or mental formations. That the mind is not just one independent entity on its own. And then through the realization of that, then the next step is thinking of interdependence, and how the mind is part of the environment, and how it's part of our relationships, and how it's interdependent on our environment.
Okay. Yeah, so how do you see the connection between understanding interdependence and impermanence, as the Heart Sutra teaches, and cultivating care and compassion for others?
I guess the mind, it has both the ability to observe and be observed. So once you break the barrier between this subjective experience and the objective experience, then things like come into one. And this could happen, this experience could happen through art, through working with communities, or through dance, or through performance.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And could you tell us about a particular moment or experience when the Heart Sutra felt really relevant to you, particularly relevant to you?
Yeah, there's been a recent experience which totally took me by surprise, which happened when I was in Saudi Arabia for 2 months to work on the Islamic Arts Biennale, and I was learning. I was learning Arabic calligraphy with a calligrapher who studied in the Grand Mosque in Mecca. And as I was learning to write this very simple stroke, all of a sudden there was this. I felt this flow between like my mind and my body and the stroke, and it was a really strong experience of some sort of union and some sort of spaciousness that is talked about in the Heart Sutra. So for me, the words, the wisdom in the sutra is really beyond religious barriers and beyond mystic experiences. Mm-hmm. More like it brings you to experience of the reality that is bigger than what is occupying our mind.
Yeah. So now I'd like to move on to your next project that you created in 2017 called Hear Her Singing. And for this work, you collaborated with music therapist Feeney Cave to develop a series of workshops with 2 groups of women, refugees that were interned at the Yarlswood Immigration Removal Center in Bedfordshire. That's really a horrible name, Removal Center. And members of the Women for Refugee Women drama group in London. And through these workshops, you invited women to exchange songs between each other. And the final work took the form of a series of video installations, right? Okay, so I guess we can maybe just see an excerpt from...
Yeah. Okay.
So when did you become interested first interested in song as a way of exploring inner states and emotional and mental states? And by the way, what was she singing?
So this was filmed inside a detention center or this was recorded inside detention center, and this was a woman. She's from Kazakhstan, what we just heard, and she was singing songs from her hometown. And when I was there recording, I could really feel the mountains and like her voice traveling through the mountains and where she's from. And so it was really so sad to know that she's in the situation where she's stuck in the detention center for not committing any crimes, and she could be stuck there. It's like she doesn't know when she'll ever come out, indefinitely. Mm-hmm. And so this project was a sharing of songs between the women who are detained and also women who have gone through the detention process and who are advocating for the people that are inside.
Mm-hmm. And how did you think about song? When did you become interested in song? When did that start?
I guess in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition that I'm really familiar with, a lot of knowledge transmission is passed through singing. Mm-hmm. So they're called songs of realization. Mm-hmm. So I was very interested in this kind of like it's verbal because there is like words, but then a lot of times it's the emotions through the singing that's being transmitted. So in this case, because what I realized throughout the project is that the policymakers, they're so far removed from the impacts of their decisions. Mm-hmm. That they don't really understand. They're not really engaged with the consequences. Mm-hmm. of what they're doing. So then the idea with working with the South Bank, which is kind of like Pompidou in Paris, where it's a very central space and a lot of art and social engagement happen. And so with this space, we end up projecting these songs publicly at the Royal Festival Hall. Mm-hmm. And to engage to raise as much public awareness as we could.
Mm-hmm. And were there forms of like care between you and the women, or between the women themselves, that emerged from this project and that surprised you?
Yes, because a lot of times when I was inside the detention center, I was really scared. Like your body just is not even what you're thinking of. All the situation. You just feel physically like a lot of fear, and then and the situation just feels hopeless. Actually, in a way, at some point. But then after the project was finished, I found out that one of the girls that we recorded, Louise, from the detention center, she was later released and had received her asylum. And then through this project, she was connected to the Women for Refugee Women who are advocating for their rights. And she joined them. And because she's also one of the few people that witnessed the horror that happens in the detention center. And then she joined the group through this project, and then she started also participating in the activism. Mm-hmm. Of the group.
Okay. Mm. So maybe we could move on to another project, Ancient Desires. So for nearly a year, you've been developing this project, which involves bringing together participants that are invited to shape these clay vessels in which they can put offerings and that are supposed to contribute to collective well-being. And you said that you began this work as a reflection on ecological devastation which you link to this sense of human dissatisfaction. So in your view, what role can this kind of collective, participatory, shared practice play in fostering healing for individuals, but for communities and for the environment?
So this project was founded by a really well-known Bhutanese filmmaker and Buddhist teacher, and he wanted to engage the young creatives in Nepal with their very rich spiritual tradition. So actually there was an exhibition, or the first project that happened in this space was the teacher invited all his students, and this is on the construction site before the space is being built. So he invited all his students to make a puppet show for the construction workers. So already this no-share equality is established at the ground. And then, for this second project, which the space is still not built, we were invited, it's a group exhibition on impermanence. So we're invited to make work that would transform and disintegrate throughout the period of the exhibition. So for this exhibition, I made clay vessels. They're like offering vessels. And the idea, it comes from like the aspiration to create a space of abundance, because a lot of times we have this constant nagging of a feeling of dissatisfaction, and then that a lot of times that is what causing actually like really like environmental devastations with the overconsumption. So the idea for this project is to create the vessel out of something that is very simple, is the earth, and we can touch the earth and make these vessels to create offerings. So this is I think we accumulated over 1,000 vessels, and then we went around the market, collect offerings, and it's offerings for the collective well-being.
And how many people participated in the project?
I think there were like maybe almost 100 people.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful because there's no authorship to the vessels and to the project. So it's people who would come and they would help make the vessel, and sometimes they have to go and attend a class or do whatever they need to do, and next person will continue with their vessel. And I love this. It was a really beautiful experience. I mean, I initiated the project, but it's really like shared amongst the spiritual communities, like the monks from the monastery, and also a lot of spiritual seekers and artists.
And did anyone tell you about what their offerings were and to whom?
No, I don't have any specific stories, but it was really fun during the making of the vessels, how like everyone was sharing, because there are so many people coming from all over the world, and everyone was sharing their stories of they met this teacher maybe in Mexico, and then they followed them all the way to Nepal, and all their travel journeys and their experiences. And it was really like a great experience.
Yeah, sounds like it. So I guess we'll go on to the last work we'll be talking about. Staying with these ideas of collective well-being and care, we can talk about this work called That Which at First Tastes Bitter. And this is a project you realized for the Islamic Biennale in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And the piece brought together a dish from Samarkand, dating back to the 10th century, and your own contemporary painting that you made that responded to this dish. And the dish has this inscription, Kufic calligraphy, that reads magnanimity. Sorry, that's very hard to say. It means generosity in forgiving someone after they insult you. Is at first bitter, but ultimately sweeter than honey. So your painting was placed behind the dish, and it evokes this cosmic body. It's kind of like a galaxy. And each point of light is made with mother of pearl pigment and inscribed with the word al-hilm, which means patience or tolerance. So could you share with us how you first connected with this ancient dish and what kinds of thoughts and emotions it brought in you?
Okay, so the Louvre Museum, they chose this plate as one of the highlights of the Islamic collection to be on loan to the Islamic Biennial in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. And they wanted to invite a contemporary artist to respond to this dish. So I was especially attracted to the calligraphy around the plate by its like the symmetry and the rhythm and the balance. And so and then also especially it's cut off a bit, but there's a dot in the center of the plate that is like influenced by the yin and yang sign. And because this was during the Silk Road period. So the idea was to respond to this kind of cosmic quality that is in an ordinary vernacular object, and then create a constellation of the word that you mentioned, al-hilm, all around the plate. And this word, it's interesting because this plate traditionally was kind of brought out in the middle of a dinner as a conversational piece where people discuss where the calligrapher is from and the meaning of the inscription. And then it kind of became like that again at the exhibition space because all the pilgrims, they recognize this word, but there are many interpretations. So some interpret it as patience, wisdom, magnanimity, and then and my favorite, and every day I was learning a new interpretation. So my favorite interpretation was it's also seen as a forbearance, or a restraint to not judge quickly, so not be quick to judge. So the idea is for this text to accompany the millions of pilgrims who pass by Jeddah every year. Oh, yeah.
And it's during this Biennale that you had that experience, you said, that brought you back to the Heart Sutra and the teachings of the Heart Sutra.
Yes, again, it was very unexpected, and I think because before this trip, Saudi Arabia was so foreign to me, coming from Taiwan. And so I think everything was new. I felt like my senses really opened up. And after the exhibition opened, I traveled with the calligrapher who I was learning calligraphy from to Medina. And when we were visiting the mosque, and I learned how to pray with our friend, and when my forehead touched the carpet, I really felt there was a dimension that opened up, and it transported me to this the spaciousness that Heart Sutra speaks about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think that's a great note onto which we can, Charwei is going to guide us in a meditation. I don't know how we're doing time-wise, but good. Okay.
It'll be 2 minutes. Okay, so I'll just take you through I'm taking out my phone to the timer, so we'll do, if you don't mind, please, we can, you can join me with, it's think of it as a breathing exercise. Okay, so the important thing is that it's good to have the legs on the floor and then the back straight. And then, okay, I'm gonna turn on the clock, the timer. And your eyes, you can choose to keep it open and at an looking down at an angle, or keep it closed if it's easier. And then now turn towards your breathing. And relax your forehead. And relax the space between your eyebrows and your lips and your hands and your leg. And just lightly observe your body and your mind. So when thoughts start to come, it's okay, just observe it and watch it come and go. And try to see if you can find a gap between thoughts. And that's it. It's 2 minutes. Yeah, when you go home, you can try this. If you can try it every day for 1 or 2 minutes, and then see if after 2 weeks you feel anything different.
That went by really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.